As the group gathers in the middle of the fields together, they began by introducing themselves first before checking out their positions. Daesung introduces himself as this year being his 10th year as a hunter, and that he was a warrior whose main position was a dealer. The siblings were next to introduce themselves. The brother was called Taehoon, who had awakened this year and uses a shield and spear, whereas his sister was called Naein, who mainly used daggers and had been learning how to use the bow and arrow. Daesung shudders at the thought that they were beginners who had not yet found their main weapons. He asks them if they had ever gone to the training center. The siblings happily told him that they had gone to a training center for 3 months. Hearing this shocks Daesung as it proves to him that they were complete beginners. Daesung then went to ask the old man. The old man introduces himself as Gangtae, and this was his 5th year. He had awakened but recently resigned. Daesung was once again afraid as he thought of Gangtae's experience as being little in relation to his age, and his weapon of choice was a gauntlet, making him a type of boxer or close fighter, which makes it hard to make up for the distance that a sword or spear could cover. Daesung then moves on to the last person, which was Leon. He asks if he was a foreign laborer or if he could speak Korean. With his hand on his chin, Leon simply stared at them in silence for a moment. He then announces to them that he does not fight, which confuses Daesung even more, as Leon explained to them that one cannot use a sword made for slaying dragons to kill chickens. Daesung was then confused and wondered when Leon learned to speak Korean. As the group travels through the forest together, they recall the test requirements, which were to hunt down 50 kobolds. They recall the instructor's words, who told them that sometimes a gnoll will pop up on the field, and if he considers it too dangerous, he will step in, so they didn't have to worry and just needed to focus on showing off their skills. Daesung was still feeling worried as he turns to look at his team members, with Taehoon showing a nervous look all around. Daesung wondered if the test was going to be okay because of what happened before. A flashback is showed where Daesung asked Leon if he didn't bring any weapon, which shocks the team. Naein then approaches Leon, calling him handsome Appa, asking if he wanted to borrow her weapons, such as the bow and arrow, and wondered if he knew how to use them. Leon holds onto the bow and stares at it, asking her if she wanted him to use this as the king. Naein happily agrees and tells him that he could just return it once he was done with it. Rage and fury rose from Leon as he grips the bow tightly in anger. He slams the bow onto the ground, yelling out that the knight does not use a long-range weapon like a coward. The team was shocked to see this as Naein shouts out, "My bow!" Daesung could only look afar with a stunned face. Daesung was too stunned to speak as the team asked Leon what he was doing. The instructor chuckles and tells them that they should get going. Back to the present, Daesung continued to think that at this rate, the test might be a fail. Leading the group, Daesung turns to them to say that he knew of a location and asked if they wanted to go there to hunt. The siblings agreed as Daesung had more experience. Gangtae was fine with any decision, but Leon still remained silent. Taehoon then tells Daesung that there was a settlement at the end of the terrain, and that there would be a lot of kobolds there too. Daesung take note of his advice. But he explains to him that it was not a good idea to go to a settlement when the group is as small as ours. It would be impossible to find a way out once they were surrounded. Daesung wanted them to hunt the kobolds that lived in caves instead, as they would set the nearby grass or leaves on fire to get smoke into the caves, which will allow them to easily kill the cave kobolds. The siblings were impressed by Daesung's plan, as expected of an experienced person. Daesung laughs off their praises, saying it was nothing, but he knew that it was something not to be proud of. It was only because he had studied all kinds of tutorials and raiding methods, dreaming of the day when he could enter a high-ranked gate, but the only gate he had gone into was the one they were in here. Passionate flames of determination rose as Daesung was determined to be promoted this time, wondering how long he was going to be a D rank for. Sweat drips down on Taehoon's face as he stutters the words in front, which catches Daesung's attention. He shouted kobolds, and it was seen that there were a group of kobolds right in front of them. The kobold spots their group and begins to rush towards them while growling loudly. Daesung quickly unsheathes his sword and tells Taehoon to block the incoming kobolds with his shield. Taehoon agrees with Daesung's command. The kobold was seen closely and growling loudly, but something smashes into its Scooby-Dooby-Doo face. Taehoon smiles at the fact that he had knocked down one so easily, calling the kobold stupid. He continues to comment that it was easy to block the kobolds if they run towards him in a straight line. but Naein yells at him to look at the front. Taehoon was stunned by this and turns to look at her just as a kobold was seen flying towards him inches away. Taehoon screams as the kobold grabs onto him and slams him into the grab. Daesung sees this and calls out to Taehoon with concern. Fear was shown in Taehoon's face as the kobold was stabbed right in front of him. Daesung manages to save him in time, and tells him to not let his guard down as the kobolds may be weak but they were fast like the Flash, but Taehoon was still screaming like a little girl. The other kobolds were shot down with arrows, while another was punched right in its jaw. It was revealed that it was the old man Gangtae that was easily taking out the kobold with his fists. Daesung was happy to see this and shouts out "Great," telling his team that there were only a few left and they should keep going. The kobolds were all soon defeated by almost everyone in the team. The instructor tells them they did a good job. Taehoon was depressed and apologized to Daesung for having made a mistake just now. But Daesung assures him that it was okay as it was his first time. He praises Naein for killing 2 of the kobolds and Gangtae was making sure that no one was hurt. He tells everyone that they did a good job, which brought smiles to their faces. Daesung thinks that he could do it. But he turns around thinking that he was anxious at first, and that it wasn't a bad party. Except for just one person, which was Leon. Leon was still standing still and was looking curiously. Daesung questioned Leon about why he wasn't doing anything while they were fighting, which the siblings agreed with. The group complained about Leon just watching from the back, wondering if it was okay for him to be doing that. The instructor laughs nervously and assures the group that he would take that into consideration when it came to grading. The group was fuming with anger but were happy to hear that from the instructor. They then decided to go further into the forest as they would soon reach the cave. The group finally reaches a place where Taehoon calls out that it was there. The group had arrived at the cave. Taesung was impressed to see that there really was a cave. Daesung then instructs them to set a fire as he explained earlier on. A bunch of dried leaves and branches were gathered. The group had prepared it right at the entrance of the cave. Daesung took out a lighter and was about to get lit. But Leon approached him from the back asking him if this was really the best he could do. Daesung turns around and replies to Leon about what he was saying when he didn't help at all just now. But Leon continued to ask Daesung if that was the best he could do, and that he wouldn't repeat himself. The siblings began to grow nervous at the confrontation of Leon and Daesung. Daesung explained to Leon that he had used this method 3 times, and succeeded 3 times. Leon tells him that it was proof based on past experience and that it was not bad. But Leon looks at him and asked how he could depend on experience when he had so little experience. Hearing those words made Daesung angry as he lit the lighter, saying, "Whatever, you're younger than me, experience my ass," he tells Leon. The fire was lit and smoke began to fill the air. Daesung tells everyone to gather as the kobolds inside were coming out soon. The group agrees. The frontline members prepares for the incoming kobolds. Taehoon then calls out saying that they were coming. A group of kobolds were then seen running towards the entrance of the cave. They were growling loudly as they approached the entrance as smoke fills the cave. Naein shouts now, as she flexes her bow readying to shoot. A rock hits the kobold that run out of the cave, while another was hit by Naeon's arrow. Daesung smiles as he knew that his method wasn't wrong. Daesung tells them that it was great and that they should continue to get rid of the kobolds with this method. He begins to think about if they could get rid of a bunch of kobolds here, and kill a few gnolls out in the plain. But his thoughts were interrupted with an intense growling from somewhere. Hearing the growl sent shivers down Daesung spins as sweat drips from his face. He recognizes the growl and knew it was a gnoll captain. A gnoll was seen with red glowing eyes coming out from the trees while breathing heavily. The gnoll captain was the boss of the Seoul Station Gate, and its rank was above C. The gnoll captain lets out a fierce roar towards Daesung. Daesung began to felt afraid, wondering why did it have to appear now. The gnoll captain continued to let out an intense growl into the forest. Naein calls out to Daesung, who was frozen in fear. He soon snaps out of it and issues instructions to his team, telling them that Taehoon and him will both take on the gnoll captain, whereas Naein and Gramps will deal with the kobolds in the cave. As Daesung and Taehoon rush to battle the gnoll captain, Daesung thinks about his decision to need someone experienced in each team, as an inexperienced D rank going up against the gnoll captain was an act of suicide. As both Taehoon and Daesung surround the Null Captain from front and back, Daesung knew that Taehoon may be a beginner, but he needed to trust him to hold out. But fear took over Taehoon as he looks at the Null Captain, who was staring right back at him. Taehoon raises his shield as the Null Captain roars straight into his face. But Taehoon was too scared and tears began to form in his eyes. Daesung sees this and calls out to him, telling him to get himself together, but Daesung knew that Taehoon was being too intimidated right now. Daesung sees that the Null Captain was about to strike Taehoon and knew that he wouldn't be able to block its attack like he usually would be able to due to the state he was in. Taehoon screams in pain as he was pushed to the ground from the Null's Captain hit, which causes the shield to fly away from his arm. Daesung shouts out to Taehoon with concern while shouting "damn it" in his mind. Taehoon was trembling in fear as he stutters trying to scream. Looking at the instructor, Daesung wondered why he wasn't doing anything, as he had told them that he would intervene once things got dangerous. He looks back at the Null Captain and Taehoon, and knew that at this rate Taehoon would be killed. Daesung shouts "damn it" and bites his lips. He makes a mad dash towards the shield that was lying on the ground. He equips the shield and shouts to Taehoon to get back. But the Null Captain didn't hesitate to prepare for another strike as it raises its sword in the air. It lands a heavy blow towards where Taehoon was, causing the ground to break from the impact of the attack. But the Null Captain was confused to see a shiny item coming out of the dust from its attack. Daesung had managed to successfully block the attack of the Null Captain just in time, saving Taehoon's life, but Daesung was struggling hard. He shouts out loud and pushes the sword of the Null Captain to the side with all his might, causing sparks. Daesung had managed to push the sword into the ground with the shield. But this action made the Null Captain mad as it growls out. It begins to start another attack as it raises its sword into the air once again. Daesung sees the incoming attack and raises the shield to block it, but he wondered if he could really block it. He thought about how they could have defeated the Null Captain if Taehoon had pulled himself together. But at this rate, they were all going to die. But a voice speaks out saying not too bad. A hand appears and catches the incoming sword with just 2 fingers. Leon appears between the Null Captain and Daesung while holding the sword with one hand and his another hand in his pocket. Absolute Giga Chad, guys, he tells Daesung to try again. Daesung was confused at what he was seeing and asked Leon what he was saying, wondering if he had really stopped the Null's Captain attack with 1 finger. Leon looks at him and tells him to raise his shield to face the Null Captain again. He then questioned Daesung that since he did it once, why couldn't he do it again? "Now get up and raise your shield," said Leon. Daesung was hella confused by Leon's words. Leon then tells him to block its attack and counterattack. "Hurry!" Leon shouted. Both the Null Captain and Daesung were confused by Leon's action. Daesung yells at Leon saying why couldn't he see the situation they were in and that they were all in danger. But Leon yells back at him with his eyes shining bright like a diamond, calling Daesung an impertinent peasant. "How dare you defy me after witnessing the glory of the King of the Lionheart Guidance?" Leon continued to scold Daesung, telling him that for a Templar like Leon to guide a peasant soldier is an honor to be passed down for generations, and that he didn't even thank Leon for the grace. Even the Null Captain was wondering what the F was going on right now. Leon continues to shout at Daesung, asking him to raise his shield, block and counterattack. But Daesung was wondering what he had done wrong as he holds onto his shield. He looks at the fierce-looking Null Captain and knew that he had to do something in order to survive. The Null Captain growls as it looks in Leon's direction. And begins to attack Leon direction. RIP in the chat, guys. Leon sees this and simply remains silent. He then lets out a fierce yellow aura and asked, "Does this rabid dog have a death wish?" The Null Captain whimpers upon seeing the big dick energy of Leon's. It trembles and growls quietly as Daesung was looking confused. But its sword was soon reaching for Daesung as he raises the shield to block the incoming attack. Daesung had manages to block the attack. But he realized that the attack was strong and that he had almost dropped his shield. "Fool, you wield a shield, so how can you only fight with strength?" shouted Leon. Leon continues to shout at him, telling him not to face an opponent stronger than you head on, but to deflect its attacks and look for an opening. "How will you succeed in the battle by only defending? Your opponent is not a scarecrow, it's a living being, a beast that can learn." Leon continues to yell as Daesung was still blocking the Null's captain attacks. He shouts at Daesung to use his head to think, but Daesung was having enough trouble with blocking and asked what he was supposed to do. Leon kicks him in the back of the leg, causing Daesung to barely dodge the attack as he tells him not to look away from his opponent. Daesung could see that a few inches of his hair had been cut off by that attack, and knew that he would have died if he had blocked that head-on. Focus, do not let your potential rot, use your potential, you can do better. Leon shouted. Daesung couldn't believe that he had potential, as he thinks of himself as just a talentless D rank without even a single exclusive skill. He continues to look at the Null captain with his shield raised, thinking that it was impossible. That there was no way he would suddenly have potential just because Leon thinks of him that way. But determination soon filled his soul, as Daesung felt that he could do it this time. The Null captain lets out another fierce roar as it swings its sword. Daesung lets out a fierce roar as well, thinking that he could do it. I can do it! He screams in his mind, as the sword was inches from his shield. The attack causes a crack in the shield as it slides across it, making sparks fly. Daesung had managed to deflect the Null captain's attack to the side. Daesung stares in disbelief that he had blocked the Null captain's attack. He was soon filled with happiness and yells out that he did it. But a fist was soon landed on his face, making him think, WTF? The Null captain had just sucker punched Daesung straight in the face, sending him flying away. Leon stood there and noted why he couldn't see the full picture. Daesung laid on the ground unconscious as Leon tells him that he still had a long way to go. Daesung's evaluation results for this year was a D. Back in the real world, a voice asks, "Did you know for the beginning?" Leon replied to the voice saying that there was no way a warrior like you would be some mercenary. The voice belongs to the Korean Hunter Association president called Oh Kang-hyuk, who chuckles at Leon's reply and tells him that he had even used a bewitching mask to disguise both his face and body. Kang-hyuk asks Leon that since he took part in the evaluation, did he get what he wanted? Leon replies somewhat and tells him that he had a soldier candidate at least, and that there was no need to be anxious as he didn't intend on going overseas. Kang-hyuk was surprised to hear this. He closes his eyes and tells Leon that he knew exactly what he was thinking and that he was a little nervous because of the power that Leon had displayed, which was so amazing. Kang-hyuk recalls the situation earlier when he witnessed Leon with the Null captain. Leon looks at the Null captain and tells it that it was a dirty bastard that didn't even succeed in becoming a human. How long do you intend to stare at my esteemed face, said Leon. He then bitch slaps the poop out of the Null captain with just one finger. Kang-hyuk chuckles at that memory and remarks that Leon had treated the monster as if it was a toy. But Leon replied saying that it wasn't even worth being a toy. Kang-hyuk then changes the topic about Leon wanted to start a guild, and that they would help. As Leon was already aware that there was nothing better than fame when he wants to establish an organization of people, and that there weren't many ways to become famous in this day and age. Kang-hyuk then talks about a gate that turned red in Cheongju because of a failed raid. And that for a year, no one has been able to clear it. To either destroy or obtain the Jewel of Wisdom. That is being guarded by the boss of the Red Gate. Jagged Spinner. This is a flashback at Cheongju Sports Complex Gate, when the first team called KPP Guild raided it. A group of hunters are gathered and seen looking around. A member of the group calls out to his brother, seeing something in front of them. It was a modern civilization, perhaps a more developed civilization than Earth. A female member noted that it was cool as the gate was that of a future world. The man stated that since there were fantasy and Miram worlds, why not a future one? A member tells the guildmaster that it was more cyberpunk. Guildmaster complains about it being a pain and that they needed to revise their plan, starting from the organization of the party. Another member agrees as they had arranged their organization thinking that they would be fighting against a few strong opponents. The guildmaster looks around and spotted a building. He tells the group that they would be using that building over there as their base camp. Since it was high up, they would have a good view over everything. The group then enters the building. The guildmaster asks Hoyle if he sees anything, but he tells him that there wasn't anything at all, no NPCs or monsters. The guildmaster then asked about the Jagged Spinner, which was supposed to be the boss, but Hoyle tells him that he couldn't see them either. The guild master calls it strange and thinks about how a city this big didn't have any people or monsters. But then he thinks it was good, as it meant that they weren't up against a resistance army or some evil authoritarian army. He then calls for his guild members' attention and explains to them that since they've entered the gate, they still lack information about Jagged Spinner. He tells them to keep a lookout on the surrounding area, and that they'll select an expedition team to map the area. But a sudden laser appears that blows up the guild master's head as he talked halfway. Hoyle was shocked to see blood being splattered around as he calls out the guild master's name. The other members could only stare as blood and pieces of the guild master's head was splattered everywhere. A machine with a railgun filled with electricity was seen. The members yell out that they were being shot at and needed to find cover. The machine reveals another barrel of a weapon and points it towards them. A huge explosion is seen from above at the building. The members all began to panic and tried running away from the explosions. But some of them were hit by the explosions as Hoyle calls out to one of his members being hit. Shit, Hoyle shouts as he thinks about how the guild master, who was in a rank, couldn't even react in time. What the hell is this monster? As Hoyle takes cover behind some rubble, he shouts that they were gonna die at this rate, and if they had found the location of the enemy. The member close by tells him 3 o'clock, but couldn't measure the distance because of the sand dust. She then tells him that the building wouldn't hold on for much longer. This prompted Hoyle to tell everyone to fall back in order. He shouts to everyone to hurry outside as the building was going to collapse. While running to escape from the building, the female member asks Hoyle about the guild master's body, but he tells her that they would get it back once they've recuperated. He then asks her to go ahead and check the exit. She agrees and dashes forward ahead of the others. As she reaches the exit, she turns around to tell the others that she doesn't sense anyone's presence here, and that she thinks the exit's safe. She soon exits the building with ease. But she felt something was wrong and stopped running. She touches her neck, which showed a faint red line around it. She wondered why her neck was itching, when all of a sudden, red lines appear all around her. Hoyle and the others soon reach the exit as well, but could only see female member's body torn to shreds. Hoyle was devastated as he calls out her name, Hyuri. He then notices that there were wires covered in her blood. He wondered since when were the wires covering the city. Hoyle then shouts out the command to sever all the wires, and that they had to get out of here. He tells his members to imbue their weapons with mana to cut through, as the wires were normal. While thinking, who was it? Is there really only one enemy? How long has it been watching us? He wondered as they continued to cut the wires around them. But something was watching them through what looks like Iron Man's screen. A spider-like machine was seen climbing on the side of a building. It sends out a blue tentacle towards the guild members. Hoyle looks up and spots it inches away from him. Multiple explosions were then seen at where the guild members were. Their screams and shouts of pain were heard loudly in the air. Blood was splattered on the ground as screams were still heard. Hoyle was gasping for air after the aftermath of the explosions. He looks around the entire and sees the dead bodies of his guild members, and his arm had been torn apart. He shouts out, "Show yourself! You piece of shit!" Soon a machine appears in front of Hoyle from amidst the destruction of the explosions it caused. Hoyle was shocked to see the machine and wondered if that was Jagged Spinner. The machine stares at him and soon memories were recalled. A female scientist was seen handing a piece of machinery to the machine, telling it that if it had this, it would still be able to fight even without ammo. The machine soon pulls out the same machine part from its memories. Hoyle screams at the machine, calling it a monstrous bastard and that it had killed his members. But the machine wipes out its blue tentacles laser, swinging it towards Hoyle and cutting him into pieces while saying, "Yap P, protect this city." Soon there were updates to Changju Gate. Its first raid team made up of 58 KKP hunters had no survivors, so did the second and third, and soon the gate boss Jagged Spinner clear difficulty was promoted to red. Changju Gate raid was now on indefinite pause. A hammer is seen landing on the ground heavily. A man with braided hair carrying the hammer talks about how the weather here was as shit as the one he saw on video. The female in front of him tells him that they shouldn't enter the city, as there was a high likelihood of Jagged Spinner appearing the deeper they were into the gate. A group of people wearing the same clothes appear, Its leader with white hair tells them that as they had previously agreed, the cloaks would be taking the Jewel of Wisdom, while the rest of the rewards, such as the 60 billion, will their guild share. The two guilds began to face each other off. They were the two new groups that had entered the Chongju Sports Complex gate. The braided hair man and lady belonged to one of Korea's top 10 guilds called the Golden Lion. It was their guild master Hwang Jiam-cheol who was S rank, and lady was the vice guild master called Hwang Yunha who was A rank. They had brought 47 of their guild members. The white hair man belonged to the Magic Tower and was called Gil Taesung, who was close to S rank, and had brought along 48 mercenaries. But there were other people. Belonging to the Korean Hunter Association was Han Hari, who was A ranked, but is seen pouring tea into a cup, asking for His Majesty to please give it a try. Leon takes a sip of the tea, and tells her that it was not bad, and wondered what the tea was called. Hari stands behind him with a depressed look and tells him that it was barley tea, Your Majesty, as Leon was seen sitting on a piece of cloth on top of a piece of ruble sipping the tea, as an additional individual. The Chongju Sports Complete Gate 4th Raid Team operation begins. Thanks for watching the latest part from the Voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more manhwa recaps.